Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Education for Tuesday, November the 18th, 2025. I would like to start out by reminding everyone that this meeting will be live streamed. As per policy number 7, regular and special meetings of the board may be streamed live, archived, and accessed online. The board reserves at its sole discretion, via motion at any meeting, the right to not stream live or archive a meeting or a portion of a meeting. Further, the board reserves the right to edit any recorded portion of a meeting. I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Langley Board of Education at 7:01 p.m. I would first like to acknowledge that the Langley School District is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Matsqui, Kwantlen, Katzie, and Semiahmoo First Nations. We gather here tonight in an understanding of the importance of Hyayastol, Skekiyais working together, and Natsamat, Letsamat, uniting ourselves with one mind, one heart to ensure that we support and inspire all learners to reach their full potential. We have, I'd just like to introduce and welcome those here this evening from the school district and including our partner groups. We have on my far left, Trustee Fox, then Trustee Rye, Secretary Treasurer Isley, myself, Candy Ashdown, Board Chair, Superintendent Gill, Vice Chair Wilson, Trustee Dickinson, and Trustee Ward. Also this evening we have with us Woody Bradford, Deputy Superintendent, Lisa Langeberry, Assistant Superintendent, Marcella Molino, Assistant Superintendent, Shind Chand, Assistant Secretary Treasurer, Joanne Abshire, Director of Communications, Claire Pereira, Executive Assistant, Paul Boa, Technical Support Specialist 3, Vincent Bondafrio, Technical Support Specialist 3, Kim Anderson, Director of Learning Support Services, Kendra Simonetto, Director of Instruction, Michael Morgan, Director of Student Support Services, Tyrone Kennedy, QP 1260 Vice President, Elva Morrison, QP 1851 Vice President, Jennifer Piper, DPAC President, Paul Traddle, LPVPA President, Taylor Foto, LTA President. I hope I remembered to read everyone's name. So welcome everyone. I'm going to pass the mic over now to Vice Chair Wilson to give the report from in-camera.
Thank you. At tonight's in-camera, the board discussed personnel, property, and legal.
Thank you, Vice Chair Wilson. Trustees, you have the consent agenda before you as circulated last Friday. Could I please have a mover and a seconder that the Board of Education adopts the consent agenda items as provided? Moved by Trustee Fox, seconded by Trustee Dickinson. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. You also have the agenda as circulated last Friday before you. Could I please have a mover and a seconder that the Board of Education adopts the agenda as presented? Moved by Trustee Dickinson, seconded by Trustee Ward. And then Vice Chair Wilson, though you indicated that you would like.
I would like to add a motion under new business.
Okay, under new business. Okay. All right. So so we will add Vice Chair Wilson's motion under new business. Could I please have show of hands to adopt the agenda as amended? Moved by, we already did move it. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, now moving on to 6.1 under Superintendent's Reports, Communications Plan. I will pass this over to you, Superintendent Gill.
Thank you, Chair Ashdown. This evening, we are lucky enough to have our Director of Communications here to provide us with her report around the communications plan and how it's been updated. Certainly appreciate the work that Joe does around the district. I think that our social media channels have certainly been impacted in a positive way, and getting ahead of and getting support for our schools around messaging has been an important part of our work, and certainly has been an opportunity for parents to feel like they're ahead of the game when it comes to communication. So I'll let Joe on.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Gill. I'm so honored to be here to present this communications plan update to the board, as well as to members of the public and everyone here today. I just want to acknowledge the team that I work with. It's a very small team. So there's myself and Nick Greeneisen, who's our communication specialist, who can't be here this evening. But outside of that team, we also work and collaborate with all the principals, with the district leadership team. I feel like I'm in operational departments. I feel like I'm constantly working with many people across the district, which is it's a blessing. It also can mean lots of challenges as well. So and lots of feedback and lots of different perspectives of looking at different ways to communicate. I'm so thankful to be here. And I just want to mention, for your background, this was provided in the package. It will also be on the district website after tonight. And for those that don't know, the communications plan is created and developed in alignment with the strategic plan. So just as the strategic plan has annual updates, so does the communications plan. So the communications plan is very similar from other plans like last year. The difference, I will mention that what you see on the board is with the check marks, those are our pillars, much like the pillars of the strategic plan. And the last 2 points were intentionally included last year, and that's related to promoting truth and reconciliation and promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. That doesn't mean that work wasn't done around that 7 years ago when I first started. This work has always been done, but it was basically a conscious decision to actually put it in the plan so that we know that this is an action item that needs to be completed as we go forward. I'll just make this very high level. It's a pretty extensive plan. And if you follow what we do in social media or read any of the newsletters or even watch the news, there's a lot that goes on in communications in the Langley School District. But how can we improve? Just some things that we'd like to continue with moving forward: enhancing communications with both our internal and external audiences, building capacity of internal and external audiences. And what I mean by capacity is like training or instructional information, whether it's for parents or for staff, as well as continuing to celebrate the positive things and the great work that we do at the Langley School District, and making an intentional shift in trying to actually highlight stories from our operational staff and showing the impact that they have on the framework for enhancing student learning as well. So the first pillar, celebrating our story, probably one of my favorite things as part of this job. I mean, I love everything, but of course, who doesn't want to hear positive news about what goes on with our staff, our students, even our members of the community, like our PAC. This is basically sharing positive news about what goes on. Recent achievements, not really recent, it's ongoing. Our social media channels grow every year, and I'm going to show you the analytics to back that up in a bit. But basically, we've seen increase year after year, and the way it works with social media, obviously, when you have high growth or even high engagement, people obviously are liking what you're putting out there. And just things that we are going to continue to work on is, again, communicating the actions of the framework for enhancing student learning, and again, focusing both on the impact of educational and operational departments. I put this photo up there, which is actually the post from social media from our retirement and service awards, and it was actually probably one of the highest photo posts that we posted last year, and it garnered more than 32,000 views, which tells you we only have like 3,000 or so staff, that the reach is quite extensive. We have people who are liking and viewing the work of staff beyond just staff, whether it's family, students, parents, people are really gravitating to what our staff are doing. This is our social media analytics. Just in brief, when we talk about how I measure communications, it's with real data, but it's also just qualitative stuff, things, feedback from parents, families, from staff, students, even that sort of thing. But as you can see, we've increased in all of our channels except for X, which is formerly Twitter. And I think that's not related to the work we're doing. I think we know that's a global economic, political situation that none of us can control. But still, presence is there, and we still actively use all of these channels. The second pillar is enhancing our board, and what I'm talking about here is really enhancing our image, our public opinion that people have of the Langley School District, really our reputation. This in the past school year, and I'll just add that when I'm looking at the year, I'm going by the last school year, so I'm always looking back. I'm talking about how last year we launched new websites for the school district and all schools. That was a very big project, and with that, you have to ensure that your branding is consistent with what was done before, as well as, has a new fresh look. With the websites, we also included accessibility features, which help us meet our requirements for accessibility, as well as a new way of translating the text, which is important for families that come from from all over the world that are a part of the district. Things that we're continuing to work on, just educating staff about our branding guidelines. Again, consistent messaging, consistent look of publications, use of the logo, that sort of thing, and just moving forward, improving the satisfaction that our audiences have when it comes to communications. Communications is critical when it comes to promoting health, safety, and wellness in our schools. The department is very involved when it comes to these communications emergency responses. And one of the big changes last year, which was in relation to hold and secures and lockdowns, a small team of staff at the district, after every hold and secure and lockdown, we review it. We review what happened. We see what worked, what didn't work, what can we improve, of course, in consultation with public agencies like the RCMP, for example. Things that we're going to continue to work on. I'll also just mention, we've also streamlined communications procedures for a student in distress response. That's something that we're continuing to do this year as well. And just, again, looking to work with our partnerships and strengthening those relationships, such as the Township of Langley, the City of Langley, and the RCMP. The Township of Langley, they actually have a new emergency management manager, I should say, and we've already made connections with them and looking at how we can strengthen our partnerships. Still related, strengthening our relationships. We're talking about, again, collaborating with different stakeholder groups and really consulting with them. One of the big examples I pull from last year is just our work with the catchment consultation in the Willoughby Slope community, which was conducted with the leadership of Assistant Superintendent Marcello Muino. And obviously that was in relation to the opening of Josette Dandurand Elementary. Anytime we have to open a new school, we're going to be reviewing catchment boundaries. We'll be doing that pretty soon too in the next couple of weeks and months and start that process again. But I just want to mention that with any time there's catchment consultations, it can be challenging because people often don't like change or they like where they are. But definitely with that example that we had with the consultation, it was quite positive in the end. I think people felt that we were listening to them. And at the same time, it did garner some positive feedback that was seen in the budget summary or the budget survey that we conducted back in February, with a few people actually noting how fair and positive the consultation was. And we'll continue to, when it comes to things in progress, work with staff on connectedness, belonging, increasing engagement, as well as, again, going back to how can we have some stories that show the impact of operational staff and their work and impact on the FESO as a way to promote recruitment and retention. Building our capacity, again, is related to just training, providing instructional information, whether it's to staff or to parents. The big thing was the website that we launched. It required of, you know, district-wide training for all admin assistants, for all administrators. That's continuing to happen just because, you know, we do have staff that can move from school to school, and also just different departments that are continuing to learn how to navigate and use the back end of the website, as well as just developing key messaging for staff. As Superintendent Mel Gill mentioned, a lot of my work too is just increasing or is developing the message that we want to be sending to different audiences. Still on the website, again, training is ongoing. In the last couple of weeks, we have developed a sort of how-to resource page that will continue on, and we'll look forward to what else we can do, what other strategies we can do to help administrators and departmental staff in just communications best practices. Promoting truth and reconciliation is really just our increasing of the awareness of the district's commitment to the journey of truth and reconciliation, and just ensuring that the concept of every child matters is acted upon throughout our district. I will say that most of the popular social media posts that we've seen in the last school year are related to all the different events or initiatives or messaging related to the district's truth and reconciliation journey. As you can see there in the photo, that was taken at the Odyssey conference in February, and it was again one of our the photos that were shared were probably one of our highest posts of the year. We also see that at other events that were taking place, including the House Post Awakening at Donna Gabriel Robbins, which was also a very popular event. I know when you guys walked in, you saw the beautiful house posts here. We'll have to see what the analytics were in a year's time, but I'm sure that it was a very popular and meaningful post for many people in our community. So that's just work that we're going to continue on moving forward, and I look forward to collaborating with our new staff in the Aboriginal Education Department, as well as all staff in our schools. And promoting diversity, equity, inclusion is the increase of awareness of what the district is doing in relation to DEI in our schools. One of the most popular social media posts, if you do follow our social media, had to do with our campaign with regards to National Accessibility Week. I worked with the Learning Support Services Department last year, and we were thinking about, okay, what do we want to do to help raise awareness? And it was a simple suggestion of let's get some student voice, and we did it, and it was great. We did 4 videos, and in that week, the 4 videos combined garnered more than like 30,000 views, which I feel like we did share these videos in past board meetings, but I always like to go back because I feel like the student voice of them sharing what it's like to be in school and have celebrating their diverse ability, and what it's like to be with the staff that they work with. It was definitely a celebration of what they can do and not what they can't do. And I encourage you to go back and watch those videos because it definitely pulls at the heartstrings. And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish. And they do it beautifully with student voice. I don't have to do that work. It's them sharing the voices themselves. So I think that's something that we'll continue to do moving forward, sharing student voice, sharing staff voices, really to just, again, talk about what the district is doing in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Any questions in relation to just the communications plan or any of the storytelling that we do here in the district? Happy to answer them right now.
Trustee Fox.
Thank you. Thank you for your overview. I think it's excellent. And I think the communications aspect of the district has grown substantially in the last couple of years. Thanks for your leadership. I was just down, spent a week with my son down in Scottsdale and reading the news down there. And of course, it's a very different education system largely down there that they're dealing with. But one of the issues that seem to come up time and time again was the authenticity of information in situations where there was a crisis. For example, this particular issue was a lockdown, but we have varying different. Can you just describe for me what your communications links are with those? You mentioned the emergency preparedness person from the township, but what other communication links so that parents, you're giving out information that you know is authentic?
Sure. Yeah. No, I can just summarize what we do in a situation as a lockdown. We have an emergency operations center that works quickly to go into their roles. I'll strictly speak to communications though. When it comes to our lockdown, our the procedure is we try to let families know as soon as possible, the families of that school community, not necessarily the families of, you know, children that don't go to other schools, just because the way School Messenger works, which is the tool we use, which is an instant email and text message service tool that the district uses, um, it is structured just by school. So I can either message the whole district or I can just message specific schools. So the way that works with School Messenger in the situation of a lockdown, we try to message within 10 minutes. I know that in the last couple of years we've had lockdowns and we've learned from different experiences. I think the one from Walnut Grove a few years ago, uh, we knew that it was very important to, even within the first 10 minutes, to say to the families there was a lockdown in our voice, district voice, and that police are on scene and we will get you more information as soon as possible. It's important to get those facts in a timely manner. We can't share any other information simply because there is 9 out of 10 times we just don't have the information, as it's an active, ongoing situation. We work very closely with RCMP, and other public agencies depending on the situation. But definitely in any situation, whether it's a lockdown or other emergency, the use of school messenger is critical because we're able to update families um, whenever needed. So in some situations, whether it's a hold and secure or a lockdown, we can do an initial message. Half an hour later, we might have another message. An hour after that, if once the situation's over, there might be another message. And finally, we can utilize that tool with sending a final letter, just explaining everything what happened. So each situation is very different and unique. So, template messaging is helpful, but at the same time, we're dealing with every scenario as is and unique to the situation. So I sort of just summarized the use of School Messenger because of its fast, timely service. Um, but there's other ways we do communicate certain things on social media as well, and the ability to use the school websites. They have different banner alerts to communicate that. All of those channels are that's authenticity. This is information coming from the district. Um, that's why we're very active on social media too, because we know that there's a lot of rumors or things that can be said on different community groups, moms groups in Langley, that sort of thing. So getting it from the source is the most important thing when it comes to crises and emergencies.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Wilson.
Great, thank you for the presentation. And I just want to say that I guess I'm fortunate or lucky to be on the communications committee, and you were able to come and present that to the committee with our stakeholder groups. And there was some very fulsome conversations and in-depth, and I could see you taking that feedback back, and I really appreciate that. Deepak had, so much insight, and just hearing the perspectives from the different groups, and how staff is affected when this is happening and they're in the building, and how parents are affected, and the use of social media now, and every child receiving or student receiving texts from outside sources. Well, like, it's so much more complicated than it ever used to be. And so, I appreciate the effort that goes into this, and I'm glad we have a communications plan and that we do seek feedback from everybody in making it. So thank you.
Any other trustees have any questions or comments? No? Okay. Could I please have then a motion that the Board of Education receives the update on the communications plan 2023-2026 for information as presented? Moved by trustee Fox, seconded by trustee Rye. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. All right, 6.2, universal design for learning. Back to you, Superintendent Gill.
Thank you. We have a team of directors here this evening to help present the district's plan and how we've started the work around universal design for learning. I do want to mention that lots of the work around universal design is seen in pockets and in classrooms around the district. This is an intentional effort on our part to ensure that all teachers get the work and the learning when it comes to universal design. And we utilize a unique method of doing that, something different than the district's done before. And again, working with our administrators, with our teaching staff together to ensure that all of our students have choice and opportunity. So please, Ms. Anderson.
Good evening. It truly is a pleasure to be here to share the work that we're doing around universal design for learning. Tonight, you will hear from Kendra Simonetto, Director of Instruction, and Michael Morgan, Director of Student Support Services, and myself in learning support. But it really is of note that this work is the collective effort of 4 complete departments. And it's been very exciting to know that the Aboriginal program, instructional services, learning support services, and student support services have come together collectively and collaboratively to support the whole child and every child in the work we're doing and their success and growth. I think to say the energy in the room when we bring 4 whole departments together is contagious and electric is be an understatement, but really watching those 4 teams come together to do this work has been a gift and a collaborative effort across the district. One of the pieces that we would like to have you learn tonight is to understand the development and implementation of our plan for universal design for learning, which will ensure that all students reach their full potential and create a positive legacy for the future. Learning targets, something that we'll touch on a little bit later, but recognizing that our hope is that you do take something away from our presentation tonight. The next slide, you'll recognize an airplane, and it really is representative of the journey we've been on for a little over 2 years. And while we have leaned into the learning and the planning and the designing and the implementation, it's really been the last couple of months that we've been able to take off in this learning. And tonight you'll hear some really great examples of the work that has happened at the school level as a result of the work that we've been doing collaboratively. And it really is an exciting time for us in this work. As part of this journey, we recognize the importance of tying together those universally designed instructional and assessment strategies with the Langley Teaching and Learning Framework, a foundational document that we use that provides that common language and supports teachers with high quality instruction, really layering together the pieces that we're already using with strategies and implementation tools that will support all students and provide access for students in the classroom. And though that laddering together really does continue to layer and deepen the understanding that our staff have and the learning that is accessed by our students. We also have recognized through the learning that we've done and the conversations that we have and the collaboration that we've done that it's important that we are intentional and thoughtful and systematic in our implementation, that we give school teams a clear journey and a clear pathway as they join us on this journey, that we actually are intentional in the work we're doing and providing that connection from district to school team to student learning, that we can see the connection between all pieces. And so this year we've set the target that all schools will enhance learner agency and student access by demonstrating evidence of multiple means of engagement, representation, action, and expression in classrooms. How do we continue to tie all of the pieces together and ensure that there is alignment and connection from each student to the work that we're doing at the district level? And with that, we'd like to start with a bit of an inclusive opener, a strategy that we often use to ensure that all students have access to the environment and access to the learning that we're doing. And so we're going to bring you along tonight. So what I would like you to do is to think about if we were to give you an all expenses paid trip to any destination in the world, no holds barred, where would you travel and why? I'm going to give you a minute to think about that. And as you engage in that thinking, we're going to give you a choice. You could write some notes about your answer. You could think on your own, or you could chat to your elbow partner. But really is a chance to invite you into the conversation and invite you into the learning tonight. So I'll give you a quick minute. And I'll bring you back together. If you were standing in my spot, all right.
It's actually.
Yeah. In 3, 2, 1. Thank you. If you were standing in my spot, what you would have seen was a whole room engaged in a conversation or thinking or connection. And when we provide that with an inclusive opener to our classrooms, to our students, we invite them into the conversation. We invite them into the learning. An inclusive opener provides an access point for every person in the room. What I also hope you notice that when we give you the ultimate choice with no parameters around that, it can be really hard to figure out what your answer is. It can be really hard to engage in a conversation without parameters. As we move forward tonight, we want you to take that little niggling piece around about choice, about inclusion, around access, and we invite you into some more conversation. And with that, I'll turn it over to Michael.
Thank you very much, Kim. Really important to state how well this fits with the teachings that we've received from the First Nations whose territories we reside on. UDL is not about erasing differences. It's about celebrating the gifts that every single learner brings into the classroom and celebrating them and designing for the gifts. We exist to nurture the gifts of all learners. We can have learners work on their deficits, but that's not why we exist. And universal design for learning has been chosen and worked upon between the 4 departments for the whole reason of we recognize barriers that exist, we remove them, and then we allow the student in the classroom, both socially and academically, to thrive. At the beginning of every meeting that Superintendent Gill leads, we hear this message. And it really is, if every child matters, how are we going to make sure that they are able to fulfill their gift and become a successful contributor to the community of Langley? And when we think about universal design for learning, what we're saying is we know for sure that if we don't nurture the gift of every single learner in Langley, our community is a worse off place. Our community cannot afford to have students who haven't had their gifts nurtured. And when we say every child matters, universal design is how we're going to show the children that they matter in the classroom and how we'll show the community what the students are capable of. So the why of this, when we talk about over and over again, the last 5%, I used to say, we are the New York Yankees. But I realize I'm not to say that anymore. We're the Blue Jays. What I mean by that is we are a high performing school district in one of the highest performing provinces, educational jurisdictions in North America and the world. And when we start to look openly and honestly at the work that we do, we were able to see there are 5% of students who we have not met the mark for yet. And I'm proud of the work that the district has done, because what the district has never said is those students are less capable, or there's something about those left-handed students that doesn't allow them to exceed or excel. And we've said these are our priorities. Every child matters, and some children need extra attention. But the beautiful thing about universal design for learning is this makes the fundamental assumption that all children are expected to learn at high levels, and through designing for them purposefully, we'll be able to do that. And really talking about, by giving agency to the learner, we're going to be able to meet our outcomes. So these are the core ideas of universal design for learning. Please take 30 seconds, a minute on your own to read each of these and just which one sticks with you the most. So as we continue with the rest of the presentation, as I hand it over to Kendra, what this marks is a real change in how we plan to ensure that we're working towards the same firm goal. I want to be really clear about this. The expectations for students are very high. How they're going to get there is incredibly different. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Kendra, who will take us to the landing of the plane.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening. Like any good journey, if you're planning a trip, you need to know where you're headed. So the destination matters. And when we design with universal design for learning in mind, we always start with backwards design. We begin with the end in mind. Where do we want to be in June 2026 as we implement universal design for learning across all our K-12 schools? Where do we want to be in June 2027 and June 2028 and so on? When we look at the how of the work, the map that we need to create to get to that destination, there's a lot of work to be done. And as Kim and Michael already spoke to, we have 3 main targets that we're looking at over the course of this implementation rollout for this school year. We would like to focus on learning targets and goals. And really that's at the classroom level, ensuring that every student truly knows what they're learning and what that looks like to have learned it. It also involves student choice and choice boards, which I'll speak to a little bit more in a moment. And it also speaks to accessibility, ensuring that we're providing access for every student to be able to engage in the learning and also be able to demonstrate their learning. And so when we talk about this work and we look at a K-12 system, this is big work. And we know that that is not work that can be done in isolation. It must be done all together. We must come together and we must collaborate in order to bring that to fruition. And we know that that has to be done with work that is supportive. This is not work that happens in an individual classroom by an individual teacher or an individual staff member. It happens through work together and creating materials and resources to support that work in every classroom. And it also happens through modeling. Not everybody in this room was necessarily taught in school in a universally designed way. Many of us, in fact, were not. And so for us as adult learners in the system that support our youngest learners, it's important that we also have the experience of engaging in universal design for learning so that we understand the benefits of it and how it truly does reduce and remove barriers so that every student has access. So we're going to go into a little bit of an engagement activity for you in universal design for learning. Here you have a choice board. We talked about that being one of the two of the 3 pillars that we are going to teach over the course of this year. This choice board, there's basically 2 pathways for a choice board. One is how do you get information that is new into the brain of the student so that they can start to process and understand it, or how do you get information that the student understands out of the brain in a variety of ways so that they can actually show what they know, can do, or understand. This particular choice board allows for new information in. And while we understand the context of this classroom is a little bit different, we do invite you to choose the pathway that matches your needs. we have an opportunity for you to listen to a brief podcast. We have an opportunity for a brief video, or if you'd like to read it, we have a short article you can engage in. So please choose the pathway that works best for you. Take a few minutes as an adult learner and discover the why of UDL. So hopefully the activity there allowed you to just have a tiny taste of what it's like to have choice in how you explore new learning. And if you were really keen, maybe you finished one and went on to a second one to see what it had to offer you. But as we scanned the room and Michael kind of looked around, me and Kim and Michael were sort of astonished by the level of engagement, because when you have choice, of course, it creates a gateway to opportunity for the student to engage. When we look at the how and we continue to look at our journey, we know that this is collaborative work. And when the district leadership team considered how can we continue to support this collaborative work as we roll out implementation of universal design for learning, the concept of utilizing a structure we already have and expanding it became a really imperative piece to the puzzle. So we, through the district leadership team's brilliance, they came up with the idea to invite more people to the superintendent's meetings that happen every month, inviting not just one classroom teacher, but also a resource teacher, and also the invitation to a counselor or a clinician, if the opportunity arises, for them to join the administrator and actually attend the superintendent's meeting for shared learning. Now, what this does is it creates an embedded school team from every single school across the entire district in a shared learning opportunity multiple times to build upon their learning together, collect and see the resources offered to them, and then take that learning back to the rest of the staff to be able to support them in their UDL learning journey. When we look back on our journey, as Kim had already mentioned, this is not just this year. This learning has been going on in the journey for a couple of years now. Instructional services and learning support services have engaged in workshops through the last couple of years to ensure that they feel that they have a good grasp of understanding for universal design for learning, so that they can walk alongside classroom teachers and staff in their journey as well. We also have been working with the new teachers or teachers in their early career in the Setting Up for Success that happens in the summer that introduced universal design to learning to some of our newest staff. And then, of course, we had started the superintendent's meetings, collaborative conversation and learning in October with our first session focusing on learning targets. With the 4 departments working together, the amazing staff in these departments have collaboratively worked across departments to develop a choice board of resources. This choice board is really truly meant to meet any educator in the system, any staff member in the system, exactly where they're at to take the next step in their learning journey for UDL. A plethora of resources in a variety of methods and styles is in there, and they're designed by Langley teachers for Langley staff. As we continue on our journey, just this past November, just only a week ago, we were able to have our second superintendent's meeting with the UDL presentation on choice boards for school teams. And then we are starting to actually see evidence of implementation. Design and Assessment Day was a week ago Monday, and we actually started to have artifacts sent in to us. Here's an example of one from Langley Secondary School, where the teams that attended the UDL presentations are now taking that learning back to their staffs and engaging their staffs in that learning with the resources and supports provided. This is an example of the choice board that was created. The team brought it back to the staff and the Design and Assessment Day. The department head leaders worked with their school teams in their departments, and every single department created a choice board for the students that they support in the subject area they teach. So when we talk about the journey, this particular presentation is simply a souvenir on the journey that we will continue to go on. We acknowledge and honor the fact that our shared work truly is to ensure every child knows they matter. And so as we continue that shared collective work, we want to close this conversation with an inspirational and optimistic closure. This is an opportunity for participants to reflect, to consider their part in the ongoing journey that we are all going on, and asking the question, what has been the most impactful aspect of the UDL learning journey you took today? And as you consider those pieces, we ask that on behalf of Michael and Kim Anderson and the other directors of the departments as well, we do hope that your takeaway is that you have a deeper understanding of universal design, how it can support student choice and student voice, how it can ensure that students know that they matter in our classrooms and their voice matters, and that every child truly does have a sense of that they are empowered to showcase and highlight their beautiful gifts, and they are able to demonstrate their unique brilliance and truly rise to their full potential. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustees, do you have any questions or comments? No? No? Okay. All right. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Could I please have a mover that the Board of Education receives the report on universal design for learning for information as presented? Moved by Trustee Rye, seconded by Trustee Dickinson. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Moving along to 6.3 Annual Board Development Plan. Back to you, Superintendent Gill.
Yeah, before we move ahead, I do want to point out that Director Seminato did indicate that DLT was brilliant. I don't know if you all heard that, but we should make sure we jump over that. So don't worry about it. We'll talk a bit about it more during my evaluation. So yeah, you can use choice words there. So the annual board development plan presentation is going to be short. I just want to give an update to community just around the work that has been going on with the board. And before I do that, I just want to make sure that just a little bit of where this comes from. For policy 2 areas of responsibility, there are 9 different areas of responsibility for the board itself. Accountability to the provincial government. Obviously, that the provincial government does direct a lot of the work around curriculum and direction around finances. And so, of course, the board is responsible for that work. Developing and maintaining a culture of student learning. That is the work. We're all here because of that work. It's ensure that we keep students at the center of our world. We talked about every single student matters. And in Langley School District, we certainly believe that, and so does the board. Accountability to and engage with our community and our community partners. Certainly that's a fantastic part of the work that we get to do, meet regularly with our partners, and we're quite proud of the relationship that we have with our partners. Strategic planning, looking at 4 years of planning, and we continually are updating our strategic plan. In addition to that, yearly we're doing work on the FESL, which is a framework for enhancing student learning, creating kind of a mini goal within the, a mini plan, a yearly plan that we have put into place. And you can find all that information on our website. All of that work is directed around the policy that we have on our website as well. It really kind of creates the framework for the work. And focusing in on really what is the relationship between the board and the superintendent. Clearly that the board oversees and then hires the superintendent to carry out the work on a day-to-day basis. Political advocacy, I think certainly our team of trustees has certainly been busy doing some work around supporting the work we need around more buildings and space, budget, and those kinds of things, contacting regular contact with ministry personnel, and that work is certainly appreciated as well. I'll skip over the next one, and the last being fiscal accountability. I think as a district, we need to be proud of the work that we do every year around fiscal responsibility. Again, a lot to do with the work of our Secretary Treasurer and his team, but sure overseen by the board itself. Next is the board development, which is part of that those 9 items. And annually, the board is to develop a board development activities that align with district priorities and board evaluation and outcomes, and to evaluate the board's effectiveness. The work that we've been doing as a board really has been having an opportunity to team up with the BC School Trustees Association, who has been working on new modules that are really built for new trustees. And our board has agreed to be guinea pigs and provide feedback and support for BC School Trustees Association around the learning for new trustees. And again, they've been great sports in going through all of the steps in the work and doing the learning together. Lots of laughing and certainly some disagreements as well around some of the work, and it's healthy disagreements that we're having. To give you an idea around governance, which was the first module that we looked at, and we continue to kind of do our little arm wrestle with constantly. This is what we're learning about. These are the outcomes around individual trustee responsibilities. Again, just outline for trustees. You think about it from the mindset that what are new trustees, what should they be thinking when they walk into this position? And certainly there were some changes in the modules based on the feedback that was provided. And I think, again, this board exemplifies a lot of those, all of those items as individual trustees. For board responsibilities, again, working together to improve student outcomes. Can't emphasize that enough, that's the work that we do. We just heard a presentation of UDL. Again, we keep focusing on the students we still haven't quite reached, and we continue to provide opportunities for our staff and our students to learn together to make sure that all students are succeeding. Again, as a board, we need to adhere to board policies, maintain what it is that the role of the board actually is, in the role of the trustees and the individual role of the chair and the vice chair. And again, we've got a code of conduct as well that we all adhere to. The other piece of the work that we've touched on so far is human resources and labor relations. Again, it can't be outlined strong enough that this is the board's fiduciary duty to ensure that it's the role of the employer that we maintain these standards, and that we're often reflecting on some of these documents, especially when it comes to human rights codes and what's necessary for all of our employers and our students to ensure that they're getting supports. Safe and inclusive work environments for our staff, occupational health and safety, and employee misconducts and appeals are some things that, again, that we're responsible for, or the trustees are responsible for. And again, just being a part of the bargaining and exempt staff compensation as well. Our next steps collectively as a board, we can continue on with the modules. There are 6, but the other suggestion from our trustees, again, to support our next board, is to go through our trustee handbook. That's been passed off to Suze Hoffman, who has agreed to facilitate. I'm not sure if I've shared that with the rest of the trustees. And she has a copy of the trustee handbook, and she's looking to see if she can put something together for us. And if she can, that's the direction we'll go. Probably looking at January or February for our next meeting. If not, with agreement with the rest of the trustees, we'll continue on with the modules. And that is where we are currently around our board development. I'll take any questions from trustees.
Thank you. Trustees, Trustee Fox.
Thank you for that overview. I think it encapsulates a large part of what we've been doing for 3 years with this board. And I don't really have a question. I just want to say an opinion. We've been very lucky to actually engage with Suzanne Hoffman, who obviously knows the culture of this particular district very well. And saying this from a historic perspective, when I got on into this role, there are multitudes of different opportunities to have individuals come and discuss what their perspective of governance is when you're in a school trustee. It's very different from my role when I was in municipal council. There's still many similarities, but it's a very different governance model than being on council. And to see Suzanne taking the leadership with the BCSTA and saying we need to get some cohesive modules in place that will go across the whole province based on best practice, and have the opportunity to sit down with this group that's here on this table, including our superintendent and secretary treasurer, to really dig into these modules and the analytics that goes with, does it fit? How does it work in our school district, and so on and so forth, has been really enriching. I've found very enriching and a great opportunity to open up discussion. We've got new trustees, we've got returning trustees, and we've got experienced trustees, all with different perspectives. And I think it's been very valuable. And I think we've been at the forefront of it, and I think we want to continue that. But we also, a legacy from this group of trustees will be the completion of a handbook that we can give out to those that are interested in running in the next election, so that they have a perspective of some of the ingredients that are necessary and to understand to be an effective trustee. So thanks to the leadership, and thanks to the work that Suzanne's done, but also the efforts of our trustees in working through those modules. So modules, not modulars, modules. Similar, but there's an R.
Good catch.
Vice Chair Wilson.
Yeah, I have found it really helpful, actually. And although there is still constantly I don't want to say battle, it's a discussion.
It's a discussion.
Governance versus operations. Superintendent and I, we sometimes agree to disagree on what's what falls into what bucket. But I do think that this work is important for new boards, and I'm glad that the BCSTA is putting these modules together, because I think right now I get asked by people like, what does a trustee do? And I feel like there are 60 school boards, I think, in BC, and probably every one of them would give you a different answer. So I feel like I know it's never going to be narrowed down completely, because there will always be autonomy and a few different factors, but I believe these modules will help trustees in the future to sort of see what the role is and have a bit of guidance to start with, which some of us trustees didn't really have. So it'll be nice for the newer trustees coming on. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other trustees have any questions or comments? No. I just wanted to add that I've definitely found it to be a really great exercise as well, and nice to be able to help as well to sort of fine tune the materials for the new trustees coming into the next term. Because as we know, there's lots of times when you come into the role that you really don't fully understand it. And I think we all are still learning, and will continuously be learning. But it is nice to give feedback on, and we have had some good discussions and some pretty good laughs too, actually, some of our best laughs probably on this board. So it's one of the activities in particular, and I know everyone knows what I'm talking about, but So we've had some fun too. So it's been great. And just thank you so much to Suzanne Hoffman as well for her leadership on this, because she's invaluable. She's pretty incredible, and we're lucky to have her to work with. And thank you as well to you, Superintendent Gill, for coordinating all of this for us as well, and your leadership, and you as well. I guess I didn't see any other hands. So could I please have a motion that the Board of Education receives the update on the annual board development plan for information as presented? Do I have a mover? Moved by Vice Chair Wilson, seconded by Trustee Dickinson. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, we're moving on to 7.1 from the Policy Committee on a notice of motion, policy 9, board representatives. I will speak to this. So at the November 4th, 2025 policy committee meeting, revisions were recommended to policy 9, policy 9, which is board representatives, due to ministerial order 217/2024 on Indigenous Education Councils, which requires all districts to have an Indigenous Education Council, or an IEC. In the Langley School District, Yaya still fulfills the role of the Indigenous Education Council. These changes are now reflected in the School Act, Section 87.001, and require districts to have an IEC and define the requirements. And as such, the staff had recommended removing the terms of reference for Yaya still being a board committee, as IECs are no longer under the direction of individual districts. And the policy committee passed a motion at their meeting recommending that the Board of Education serves notice of motion to the district's education community and its education partner groups that it intends to adopt the revisions to policy 9, board representatives. So as policy committee chair, I'm bringing this to the board this evening and would like to make a motion to the board that the Board of Education serves notice of motion to the district's education community and its partner education partner groups that it intends to adopt the revisions to policy 9, board representatives, at the January 27th, 2026 regular board meeting. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Trustee Fox. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, can I please have a show of hands? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, under new business, I'm going to pass the mic over to Vice Chair Wilson, who has a motion that she would like to make this evening.
Thank you. This motion is for basically an employee satisfaction survey, so I'll just get into it. Whereas the Langley School District endeavors to build a culture of care that leads the way to a workplace that values, respects, and adapts to individual well-being needs. Whereas the Board of Education recognizes that healthy staff are the foundation of a flourishing school district that meets the needs of students. And whereas the Langley School District strategic plan uses the results of the employee satisfaction survey as performance indicators to gauge its progress in the following areas: organizational culture, clear leadership and expectations, balance, recognition and reward, involvement and influence, civility and respect, psychological protection, psychological and social support, psychological competencies and demands, protection of physical safety, and workplace management. And whereas a metric must be established to identify where improvements are needed and where supports are required, be it resolved that the Langley School District, in consultation with representatives of its employee partner groups, conduct an employee satisfaction survey at least once every 4 years to coincide with the halfway point of the municipal election cycle for school board trustees. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you. I'll ask for a seconder. Have it. It's all good. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Trustee Ward. Okay, and discussion now on, oh, actually, would you like to speak more to that?
Sure. I think the motion says it most, but I just believe it behooves any employer to understand its employees, and the Guarding Minds survey that the district works with is a comprehensive resource to help assess the psychological health in the workplace, and this motion is just meant to ensure it continues.
Thank you. Any trustees have any questions or comments on the motion? Okay, Trustee Fox.
Thank you. And I did share this with the mover, Vice Chair Wilson. And I guess part of my first comment comes from my interaction with other trustees at Metro Vancouver. When we meet, we talk about things outside the agenda. And one of the issues that's come up over the last bit is trustees talking about within their district working on a strategic plan. And they're doing it right now. And I questioned them and saying, why are you working on a strategic plan right now when a year from now you've got an election, you've got potentially up to, in our situation, 7 new trustees, and you're expecting them to adopt your strategic plan, which they are unfettered in reality to having to do. They could say to the superintendent, no, start over. So our district has chosen, and I always tell them this, that at this point in time, and this was shared at the communications meeting just a week ago, 10 days ago, which some of you are at, that we do it at the end of a 4-year term. So what, to me, as a trustee, doing it at the end of the 4-year term of the strategic plan, which we develop at the beginning of the term, it's a bit of an evaluation tool for us. It provides us documented evidence. As we see tonight, some of the aspects are presented at each public board meeting over the course of 3 years at this point in time, and there'll be more, I'm sure, presentations of that nature. So I feel that to do it in the halfway point is not the optimum point in time for us to utilize the strategic plan to its maximum benefit. In the first line of business in November, once the new trustee board is sworn in, the first line of business is develop a strategic plan. They will use this information from this year's Guarding Minds survey as part of the instrument that they'll use to develop. So I would like to, and I'm going to wait for the discussion to finish before I make a motion, but I would like to, or my feeling is that the period at the be it resolved should go after 4 years, because that the school district, Langley School District, in consultation with representatives from employee partner groups, which we do. In fact, we have a meeting coming up in December, conduct an employee satisfaction survey, and you could put in there Guarding Minds at least once every 4 years, period. Because if we state it's going to be in the mid-year, the next board could just say, no, we want to move it. So let's let the next board make that decision, because they're unfettered as to our decision as such. So I think the idea, it's in the plan. I think it'll be in the plan. It'll be in the next, the indicators will be there. There are some goals that are accompanying it under the human resources section. There's also lists 5 other elements of any of the performance indicators. So there's lots there. I think, and I believe, that the Guarding Minds survey has a significant value to us as a school board and to the school district in terms of how we're doing, in terms of what we need to do, and in terms of planning for the future. So I just feel it should be done at the end of the year, and I would be willing to make that not specific in here, just put the period at the end of 4 years, so we ensure it's done when the next board wants to do it. So I'll let others speak and then I'll make a motion.
Any other trustees have any questions on the motion or comments? Trustee Dickinson.
Um, can you, Superintendent Gill, through the chair, this survey is already underway, correct, right now?
Yes, the process for the survey has started, meetings with our partner groups and scheduled to kick off at a SUPS meeting in January or February, I believe, to be completed and brought back to trustees by the April in camera and then shared with partner groups after that.
If I may. I'm just thinking about this and thinking about being cognizant of a motion getting put out there and winding up on a tracker forever. And perhaps thinking that it might be beneficial if we were to sit down at Abstract or the next meeting so we can craft this, so we can work on the idea so it doesn't overstep admin procedures, or should it be in a policy somewhere? I just don't want it to wind up on our motion tracker sheet and sit there forevermore for all future boards. So just trying to be cognizant of where this could go. Does that make sense?
Secretary Treasurer Lee, you have something
Yeah,
to add?
policy states that all HR related items, excuse me, are the purview of the superintendent. That's dictated under policy. So if this was something that the board wanted to mandate, I would suggest it would have to go back to policy committee and be put into policy if that's what the will of the board would be.
Any other trustees have any questions or comments? Oh, Trustee Fox.
Sorry, if I could, if it goes back to policy, one of the things that, and I attend policy meetings, but I'm just an observer. I'm not actually engaged in any discussion during the meeting. Is policy the right place to do that if you want input from any and all? My question through you, Chair, maybe to the superintendent or either one of you.
Board policy dictates that if there's items that the board feels shouldn't be the purview of the superintendent, that they are free to adopt policy to make that happen. So policy is the place to do that.
Okay, so
Policy then does come back to the board for a vote before it goes out.
Okay, but at what time? So that's when we would be able to engage with as a full board.
All recommendations that policy makes come back to the board because they can only be adopted by the board.
Yeah, I would rather have that discussion within the context of our trustees and senior management as opposed, and so when we bring it back, there's more clarity, but if that's the process, then I'll deal with it as such. Thank you.
Yeah, and I have something as well to say, but Vice Chair Wilson, feel free, and then
I really don't think policy is the place for this, just because if the policy committee doesn't see fit to bring it back to the board or something changes about it in policy, then we don't have a board discussion about it again. The whole board isn't on the policy committee. So I think that it is for the board to decide, but I obviously don't want to make the board uncomfortable if people feel that they need more time with the motion or to seek advice, then I'd be happy if somebody wants to refer it to the next regular meeting, so that people have an opportunity to discuss things.
Trustee Wright.
Here to be resolved. I attended the last communications meeting and they're all, majority of the partner agencies were there. So is there something like you can take that's there to discuss? Like instead of the policy committee, is that like, there's pretty good discussions happening at that last meeting. Like. Sorry. I was just stepping in for Tony that day, so I don't know your guys' schedule for the communications committee. But I just feel like that would be a good place to discuss it too.
So I believe though, I'm just going to step in and say a few things that I wanted to, that I had written down as well, because I struggled a little bit with this one, and I want to preface my thoughts and acknowledge that it's absolutely that. I appreciate the sentiment behind your motion, Vice Chair Wilson, because I believe the intent is thoughtful and reflects, you know, a genuine desire to hear from our partner groups. But our board is governed by policies. We're a governance board, and that framework it helps us to, you know, to make our decisions. And I don't actually know where this would fit, because it wouldn't necessarily be a policy, because and it's also, so looking through it, I looked through our policies, and so policy 12, as has sort of been mentioned already, Appendix B, which is the Superintendent Performance Assessment Guide, Section 9.1 says, under human resources, says that the superintendent has overall authority and responsibility for all personnel-related matters, except setting the mandates for collective bargaining and those personnel matters precluded by legislation, collective agreements, or board policy. So if we were to, I believe, if we were to vote in favor of this motion, it actually goes against our policy, because we are, this is what I believe anyways, because we're moving into operational work and not within our board's governance framework and policy. And, you know, directing how and when surveys are done, that's, I believe, as well, the role of the superintendent. It doesn't mean, and also my big concern also is we're dictating the work of a future board, because as Trustee Fox mentioned, our strategic plan, that's done at the beginning of each term, and that's the work of the board, along with the superintendent. And not to say surveys, because I absolutely believe that the survey is going to give us really very meaningful data, and I absolutely, if I was reelected, would push for having it done again. And, you know, unless somehow we decided to do something else for our metrics to measure, to collect our data that we wanted from our staff. So I'm just concerned about making a motion here that goes, first of all, against our policy and also binds a future board, as, you know, Trustee Dickinson mentioned, you know, because it will sit there sort of for eternity as the metric, and maybe there's something else in the future that the superintendent, you know, in working through the strategic plan, which is his job. He's accountable for delivering the strategic plan that our board sets the direction in the strategic plan, and then the superintendent is accountable for delivering it. So I'm sort of rambling a little bit here, but I've just sort of struggled a bit with, like, where does this fit in and how do we make it work? And absolutely not to say that I don't think that the survey, so please don't you know, feel that I'm criticizing it all, because I think it's great work and will give us really good data, because but I believe, if anything, it should be referred to policy, because it's actually right now, if we approve it, it's going to go against our policy at the moment. So if the board wanted that to not be part of the superintendent's work, then, you know, but as far as referring it to policy, it could be referred there for a conversation to then potentially be brought back to the board if there was a way to make it work. But so anyways, I'm wondering if the superintendent has anything more to add to that. Do you have anything, more thoughts on that, or for my rambling? Trustee Ward.
Okay, through the chair, thank you. I'm just trying to gather my thoughts here. Obviously, I second the motion because I, like all of us, want our employees to be feel heard and satisfied, and of course, we can make course adjustments, even in little ways, just to improve the overall satisfaction of employees. We've got a lot of employees that rely upon good governance and good leadership. So having said that, I'm kind of in a pickle too, because I supported it. I agree with the intent behind it. I agree with trustees Fox's kind of capping it off at the end and different fine tuning. At the same time, it sounds like, if I understand correctly, what Secretary Treasurer Isley said with respect to it being in the purview of the or in policy, we'd have to make this change. So I wonder if there's a third option to not defer to policy, because then it could be, what's the word on that? It could be not brought back here. At the same time, to give us a chance to allow for further kind of robust discussion, so that at least we as trustees become more, we can understand it a little bit better, rather than potentially killing it in policy, nor voting on it hastily here. So that's my question.
Okay, Superintendent Gill, and then Trustee Dickinson.
So if we're looking for a different option, again, it does sit in the purview of the role of the superintendent. And so for us to have a further discussion on this, to have something like this embedded in the work every 4 years, and that decision would therefore be taken away from me as a superintendent. I believe we can refer it back to in camera for the superintendent's performance. Because if that's the concern, that that's not going to happen, or it's a conversation around what needs to be or ought to be a part of my role versus a role that's put into a motion, and we can have that discussion. I think that would be a fulsome discussion with the whole board.
Trustee Dickinson, and then I'll go to you, Vice Chair Wilson.
Okay, because to the chair, to Superintendent Gill, was just thinking, I'm like, maybe the place would be education strategic plan, because it is our strat plan and this is a measurement tool, but I'm also okay if it lands in camera. So in the spirit of that, I would like to make a motion that we refer this to our next in-camera meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Trustee Rye. So would you like to speak more to that, or should we just go on and ask?
I think it's pretty
No,
self-explanatory.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions or comments on that before we take a vote? Okay, Vice Chair Wilson.
I'm, obviously it's making people uncomfortable and that's not my intention, but I do disagree that it sits in the purview of the superintendent's role. But again, there's the governance versus operations tug of war that goes on. So because it is part of the strategic plan and a metric we use, and the trustees are directly really part of our role is the strategic plan, I feel that it is fully within our purview to do something like this. But if the board is, its will is to have it go to an in-camera, then so be it.
Trustee Rye.
in my point of view, I agree with Tony. I don't think that yourself, Candy, and I should be making a decision on this motion in the policy committee and then not having it have the ability to be brought it up to the other trustees. Like, I don't want to kill it there. It's Marnie's motion. I think she should be present when we discuss the motion. And I think we should all be, like, we're having such like deep conversations about it now. I think, I don't know if it's in camera is appropriate, or like you said, the education committee. I don't know where it's appropriate, but I think it should be in a place where we can all participate and have a conversation about it and make a fair decision on the motion.
Superintendent Gill.
The only reason I would argue that we go to in camera is this is in the purview currently as I read it. So there might be a difference in opinion on that, but that should be discussed in camera because it does incorporate, again, my performance and the work that I'm responsible for. At least that's what I believe. That's how it got, around collecting this information. This was, again, my responsibility as part of the strategic plan. That was the work that we did collectively as operations staff. And I feel like that's where that conversation should be, so we can actually have a fulsome conversation that may include conversation about my performance.
Trustee Ward.
I think we should call the question. I'm going to support. Support, thanks.
Can I say something first?
You have to call the question.
So we call the question and let's vote on if we're going to call the question. It's all good. I don't need to say anything more. We're voting on calling the question right now.
Yeah.
No, on the question. We have to vote on that. Yeah, to end debate. We're voting on that right now. Yeah, all those in favor to call the question and end debate. Carried unanimously. Now we are at the motion, and now we will take a vote on referring this to our next in camera as per Trustee Dickinson's motion. So can I have a show of hands, please? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried with Vice Chair Wilson opposed. Thank you. Good conversation. Okay, now we are moving along to trustee work reports. Just reminding trustees that this is no longer trustee comments. So if you could refrain, I can't talk. Refrain from making personal remarks. This is reports. If anyone has anything to report on their last month or no, okay, no trustee work reports. All right, so we will move along to question period. Question period is provided at board meetings. And bear with me, sorry, this is long. The purpose is to ensure that those present in the audience have an opportunity to obtain clarification concerning business conducted during that meeting. Priority will be given to responding to one question per person before considering further questions from any individual. The following will help the public develop questions for question period at a board meeting that is keeping with the goal of a respectful and focused meeting. Questions need to be directed to the chair and not to staff, need to be related directly to the topic on the agenda, need to be succinct, focused, and not be a statement. May not be asked that are related to personnel or directed at an individual trustee, may not be asked that are related to contract negotiations, and the questioner shall provide their name so that it can be reflected in the minutes. All of the above are directions provided for in board policy number 7, board operations. The chair may answer, may defer, or to staff, or indicate a question may not be in keeping with the above guidelines. The board appreciates the public's interest and wants to ensure a professional meeting is conducted with question period focused on providing guests with the clarification they seek. Trustees also welcome questions from members of the public apart from question period. Our contact information is available on the school district website. Do I have any questions? No questions? All right, no questions. Okay. Could I please then, trustees, have a motion that the meeting be adjourned at 8:29 p.m. Moved by Trustee Ward, seconded by Trustee Fox. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thanks for coming out, everyone.